Okay, hey everyone, welcome to another edition of SAN Nano Chats. And today we are happy to be joined by Chinmay Balusu of Simply Neuroscience, whom I just got to know recently. And I knew immediately I needed to have her join us and tell us more about Simply Neuroscience. And I'm always a fan of encouraging young founders who are starting things, and I want to bring them into a platform and ask them the hard questions about what they're doing, how they're doing it, and how, hopefully along the way, they'll learn something as well. And also, I hope that we learn something too in this discussion. So Chinmay, welcome to the show, to the program. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about Simply Neuroscience.
Awesome, thank you. So Simply Neuroscience is a pretty new organization, I'd say. We came together about 3 months ago, but I would say that we are developing a lot faster than we expected, and it's honestly great news to me and the rest of the team. And I'm really honored to be here today and tell you about it. So I wanted to start off by sharing a few quotes from some of our team members, Athena and Perrin, who are high school students who are interested in going into neuroscience and psychology, but kind of didn't really know where to start to really go into exploring these fields. And so the problem with neuroscience and psychology in high school is that there's not really a lot of exposure to really what exactly those fields are. So kids may know that the brain is really fascinating and they want to learn more about it, but there's not really that many opportunities to get into it in high school. And so one of the things that Simply Neuroscience is trying to do is really get that connection between high school and outside resources even stronger, so that more and more kids can get into these fields and really think about if it's something that interests them and they want to study it in college and beyond. And so our mission can be summed to neuroscience and psychology, education, outreach, and awareness. And we chose to integrate neuroscience and psychology because we believe that there are fields that certainly do overlap a lot. And oftentimes they're really separated, but kids find that their interests do really overlap. I really found that after taking AP psychology in high school, that there were a lot of connections that I found to the biological side that I saw in neuroscience, and I fell in love with that intersection of neuropsychology. And so part of that was what inspired us to kind of integrate the two fields together. And the 3 parts, education, outreach, and awareness, is really getting to learn more about the brain, and not just only that, but going out into your community and really kind of what are the applications of this science and these fields in real life. And the awareness aspect of that also comes into really, you may know a lot of individuals who struggle with mental health or maybe a mental health condition in their lives. And so being able to normalize talking about mental health in everyday conversation, even in high schools, is something that's really not really open, I'd say. And so part of what the education outreach is that we want to be able to have those open conversations. And so those are the 3 things that Simply Neuroscience stands for. And I will be going into more detail about what we're doing to really further our mission. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about our team. So in these last 3 months, we have grown from 1 member to 42 student members from the United States, India, and Canada. So we have become international. And our high school students and undergraduate students come from across the United States. And really, Simply Neuroscience initially started out as just a group of high school students and me and another friend who were high school graduates. But now we're very proud to expand it to undergrads as well, as even in the first couple of years in college, students don't have to formally declare their major yet. And so we hope that this could be a great opportunity for them to explore these fields and really get an idea if it's something that they want to get involved in. So these are a couple of pictures of our members who are all very excited about learning about the brain. And overall, we're just a very passionate family, I'd say. And so a couple of the things that we're doing here at Simply Neuroscience is really trying to get students skills that will prepare them for college, and also things that interest them. So integrating those 2 together. And part of that is from our writing team, where students go and look into what is really going on in these fields, what's happening in the news, and kind of being able to come back to the team and share that with the other peers. So part of that is, can you translate the research and the scientific knowledge into everyday language? Because we think that that's very important for our students to be able to understand the scientific, but then also sharing that knowledge with their community. And we also have a Brain Bee resource creation team. So the Brain Bee is a high school neuroscience competition that is international, and students can compete in regional chapters, move on to nationals and international. And the Brain Bee is really a starting point for many students in neuroscience. A lot of our team members have actually joined us after hearing about us, after they've competed in Brain Bees. And so the Brain Bee is like a neuroscience Q&A competition. And our goal is to compile study materials and learn about the brain in the process, so that we can really expand what really learning about the brain is. In schools, AP psychology is really the closest you might get to learning about the brain, but when you come to the Brain Bee, there's such a wide range of things that you can get involved in, and a wide range of topics, such as neurodegenerative diseases, you have developmental, aging, and all sorts of topics, really. So it kind of opens the doors to a wide range of careers. And that's part of what our Brain Bee team is doing, is kind of developing those resources for different topics, learning about the brain, and sharing that knowledge. And our research team is also doing something similar in terms of sharing knowledge by really putting together a database of opportunities that students can do by themselves at home, or also go out into a lab or maybe hands-on experience. So whether that be internships or matching students with research mentors at universities, to kind of get that field experience of how can my learning be applied to benefit society in general. And so those are a couple of things that writing, Brain Bee, and research are doing. And our outreach and awareness are, once again, the idea of let's take our education and translate it into community awareness. And so we are in the works of planning high school neuroscience conferences or conventions. Currently, we're planning the logistics for Florida and New York. But our goal is to introduce students to these fields, or if students already have that interest, we really want to foster that and let them know that there are these things that they can get involved in. And part of that is high school students oftentimes face a lot of stress, college applications, SATs, a lot of stress in general. And so the awareness part also applies back to us again in terms of how can high school students manage their mental health as well. So that's kind of a general overview of what we're doing. And as for long-term, our future plans, visions, goals, we really want to just strengthen the bridge between high school neuroscience and psychology and in university. And we want to support our team members and other students in general in every step of the journey. I've listed a wide variety of careers here, and really neuroscience and psychology have a lot of applications, and really things that we can't even think of sometimes. It's just amazing how much the brain can really do. And I've always been fascinated by the brain, and a lot of our team members are as well. And we really want to provide every opportunity for kids to really further their passion and explore whatever they want to through our organization. So, that's it.
Great. Thank you so much. So there's a website, simplyneuroscience.wix.com. Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. So now comes the fun part. Are you ready?
Yeah.
So what I usually start with is, if we can, I want to go a little bit into your logic model. So have you heard of logic models before?
No, I've not.
So logic models are like a one-page document, a visual representation of the connections between your problem that you've identified, the mission, the actions that you're going to be doing, the activities that you're going to be doing, to the things that you're going to be measuring. For example, like how do you know whether you're successful or not, right? What are the indicators that you're going to be tracking So that allows you to say, hey, I'm making a dent into this goal, right? Because of this outcome that I have. Like, this is an outcome that we have. Maybe you don't have an outcome at this point in time. So what I want to do is just go through that model. Okay. And so what I usually encourage organizations to do, in fact, you can visit our website, stemadvocacy.org, and we have our logic model on there, and you can look at that example. And just to give you a sense of, because that's a really usual document when you present, you can just do one page and then you can show people, okay, here's a logic model. Here's this problem statement. Okay. And then here's our mission. Like, the answer to that problem is this. The way we're going to solve it is this. And this is how we're going to do it. A, B, C. Okay. So if you can rephrase the problem, like in a sentence or two at the top, what would you say is the problem you're trying to solve?
I would say the problem we're trying to solve is there's not that much exposure to neuroscience and psychology for students at younger ages, and we're trying to solve that through our organization's mission of education, outreach, and awareness.
Okay. And how did you come about to that problem? Like, why do you think that's a problem?
I would say personal experiences for both me and my team members.
Okay.
I got into kind of my passion for the brain freshman year of high school when I first competed in the Brain Bee, and meeting a group of like-minded individuals there who also wanted to learn about the brain, but didn't really know what avenues they had to go about doing that. Kind of seeing that we all had this this kind of concern in general, that personal experience was what drove me to found this organization and also reach out to other peers.
Okay, but then I would encourage you to also think about it. How could you quantify this, right? Could you quantify the problem in the sense, okay, hey, how many neuroscience courses are there in high school? I'm willing to bet not very many, right? And so, and you can easily, and I think you can maybe even look for data that's already in place. You can say neuroscience is something that we are not exposed to until college, right? You know, and then you can make the argument, actually, why is that the case? Why should we be exposed to it earlier? And this is the mission of our organization, right? You see how that simple that became, Simply Neuroscience, how simply that became, right? So, but then you need to kind of do the homework and figure out, okay, is it true indeed that neuroscience, and this is going to be true, but you have to show that it is true, right? And I think there are data sets out there. You can poll a couple of high schools and ask a couple of teachers, you know, say, hey, is neuroscience taught at your school? You can even ask some students, is neuroscience taught at your school? And you get a graph, and like, people that say no will be very, very high. Right. And that could be like, this is the problem. And it's very, very clear. And especially when you're trying to apply for grants or funding, donation. I think when people see that, then they know that this is a real problem that you're trying to solve. Yes, you have a personal experience, but also it's driven in data. Right. Okay. So that's a cool piece. And then the problem is that there's this lack of this neuroscience exposure in high school. And then the mission, this would be your solution, is what?
Our solution would be providing educational resources, and then also teaching students how to apply that to their lives and to their communities.
Okay, so exposure, right, in general terms. And it sounds like, if you can go to the slide where you had the different elements that you do, I think that's a really great slide. Yeah, I think this one, the one after this one. Yeah, where you say this research, and then you have education and so forth. So basically, what I was saying is, these pieces of the puzzle that you're trying to solve, for example, the research side, right? Like I was trying to figure out, what is the core thing that you guys do? Okay. And I think it's great to try to do many different things. And at times, especially at the beginning, that's, you're trying to figure out what would stick. But I was curious about the activities, right? Because you have the Brain Bee, And it sounds like you're also doing these, you're organizing something you said in Florida, you're doing something
In
there.
Florida and New York, right?
Okay, and what are you organizing there? Say it again one more time.
We're putting together a neuroscience conference slash convention for high school students. So the hope is that we can have workshops, hands-on activities, um, bring in guest speakers to kind of provide more exposure. It comes back to exposure for neuroscience and psychology.
Okay, because then that's intriguing, right? Because then you're talking about having this big event, right? Like
Mm,
event organization where you have people come in and you bring in audience, you bring in speakers perhaps, and other people that will come at this thing. And that could be a defining feature of what Simply Neuroscience could be, maybe, right? Because if you think
mhm.
about it, do you know the Society for Neuroscience, the big conference that
Yeah,
takes place, right? That's the massive one, 30,000, neuroscientists in one space. I
yeah,
think, that's maybe too big for you guys, right? But you can imagine that, hey, we want to have a safe space for us too, right? That's too big, right? Another problem statement to say, hey, it's hard for us to find a place in this big organization. Maybe organizing these events could be something that we do. Of course, time is going to be the limiting factor because you
definitely.
guys, you guys are all going to college, right? Um, and so,
Yeah,
so, so you have to think about that actually, because then how are you going to do what you say you're going to do?
yeah.
You know?
So we definitely have been talking about this a lot lately. Um, so me and my leadership team is half college students and half high school students right now. And so our kind of hope is that the conference that's being organized in Florida right now is going through our COO's college. And so the I would say the event that she's organizing is bringing a lot of her peers from her clubs, neuroscience clubs. Her professors might be coming in as guest speakers, and so we're really trying to, I guess, um, organize these conferences in a way that has more of those personal, local kind of connections, more of so than we need to bring in a lot of new outside kind of resources. So the one in New York, we're hoping will be close to my college, Columbia, and so I will be able to kind of hopefully bring in the more of what's already there in the community and kind of integrate that in, rather than kind of starting out completely new, because we think that the resources are there, but we need to do a better job of really integrating them and bringing them to students to make it more accessible, I'd
to,
say.
to, to high school students, right?
Exactly.
Okay, because I mean, the reality is time goes away. You're going to be really
Exactly.
in your classes and so forth. So you got to think about what is not the lowest hanging fruit, but what's the most strategic way that I can still focus on my time and, like schoolwork and,
Right.
and be able for us, right? Because your team is all over the place, right? They're not all in one state or city, right?
Right.
You guys are virtual. So then how do you use that capacity? How do you use that as hubs, if you will, right? And I can imagine maybe you're in New York, you're going to be in New York. Then how do you leverage being in New York? Maybe perhaps because the goal ultimately is get to the high schoolers, then maybe going to high school, having programming that let's say you do once or twice a year, once a semester or something. A team of you, maybe each buddy, every person in a college, for example,
Mm-hmm.
then takes two of you go to a college, go to a high school, and you talk to like high school teachers or students about neuroscience. And that could be a way, right? But also you guys have to learn neuroscience too, which is the other problem, right?
Right.
Because you're gonna have to take these courses, and even colleges they don't have that many courses. Because
Right.
so the challenge is, I think you have to articulate how can I best utilize the little time you have to do this, right? Because also if you want to create a whole organization, that's a huge time sink, right? Because we talked
Right.
briefly outside about starting a nonprofit, and I don't know, because starting that, I mean that's a real, it will take time, and the question is, do you do it now? Like when do you do it, basically, right?
Right. Right.
Because I see organizations come and go very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think here you have something interesting here, which is focusing on neuroscience like in high school. And so the question is, what can you do right? With little time you do have, what is doable,
Right.
in this frame? So you guys are, I'm assuming you're talking about this a lot, right? Um, yeah. So,
Yeah.
so, so what's coming up? Like, yeah. So what's coming up? What are some things that you guys think you can do as you all going in different paths in college and so forth?
Right. We definitely have been setting up a lot of team meetings to talk about how we can
Yeah.
spread the work to everyone. Um, and I'd say as we are going to different plans and as school year starts up again, um, we're really, I think it comes down to trying to personalize what each team member is doing so that um, it contributes to their journey as a whole, but then also the organization as a whole. So kind of what we're trying to discuss right now is kind of puzzle pieces, as in let's say someone, so I know one student who does have a neuroscience chapter at her school through Biology Olympiad. And so how can she kind of bring in her aspect of outreach to her community through that club? How can we kind of translate that to other schools, talk to other high school teachers and students, like you said? So I know this is a very kind of convoluted answer, but I think that we're trying to, our leadership is trying to kind of assign each member a part that they don't feel like it's a requirement or like something that they feel like they're forced to do, but rather something that's meaningful to them and also that they can come back and share with others that kind of fits together. So for instance, I'd say with conference planning, one student has experience organizing a make-a-thon for a different organization. And so she's passionate about crafting workshops. And that's something that she would like to put together for our conference. Another student is really passionate about reaching out to neuroscience professionals. And so that's something that she wants to do. She wants to have that personal connection talking with them and also contribute to our conference in a way. So I definitely time management is something that we are still working out the logistics of, but we're trying to take it small puzzle piece steps at a time, I'd say.
I think, yeah, just to keep thinking about that because that will be important as you go forward, and whether maybe you should maybe partner up with another organization so that you can do the things that you want because you're going to need funding, right, to do some of these
Right.
things. And maybe, and I think identifying, do some market research to figure out, okay, maybe it could be that we target teachers, right, high schools, right, to say, okay, how many high schools are now teaching neuroscience? That could be something that if you are, I know you're trying to divide and conquer right now, but I wonder if maybe if you do the opposite and say unite and conquer
Mm,
by having a concerted effort in one specific goal, then you can have a very specific task and you can measure it when you're done, right? So if you're going to target teachers, for example, and then say, okay, now how many high schools are now doing this X, right? Whatever that is for you, that could be something that then you can measure and say, okay, we in the past year have engaged 10 high schools, and two of them are now have now started neuroscience clubs, for example, where they didn't have one before, or the teachers who teach biology in those courses are now also teaching neuroscience as part of it. I don't know, but that's, you see what I'm sort of go at, right? That's a very
yeah.
specific goal that if you all unite could say, okay, I can maybe target the schools, the area, the school, the high schools in my area. You could target the schools in Colombia, but the goal, like the target, is still the same target. Like you can just count the number of high schools across where you're at, for example, and you can
Right.
multiply this across the globe because ultimately, if you share some people in India, the same problem, right? You can say then, okay, in these high schools that we're engaging, how many of them are now doing neuroscience or are trying to do neuroscience?
Mm,
Right? If the goal also is to say, can we leverage Colombia, let's say, right, to get more of the graduate students or college students to be going to high schools to teach neuroscience,
mm,
right? That could be something then, the only time thing that you'll be doing, you'll be like just connecting with people in those universities and saying, okay, hey, we should do this. So you're not doing it by yourself, right?
right.
You're leveraging their time and experience already. You don't have to do everything from scratch. But I really think this high school thing is very targeted. The thing I asked you earlier about what exactly are you measuring, I don't know if you've even thought about that yet.
No, not really. That was actually a really good point.
Like you should try to figure out what should I be measuring? Like what is important to us to measure to let us know that our outcome, whatever that is, we're getting closer to it. And so
Mhm.
what you need to do there, and that's why I mentioned the high school, like how many high schools are now teaching neuroscience versus before, you can then begin to, that's you can easily measure that, right? You go to a
Right.
school that's not doing high school neuroscience, and they say, oh, well, how many workshops have we held of neuroscience in that school? And better yet, kind of a big goal is now this high school in this low resource setting, for example, is now also doing neuroscience stuff. That's a great win, for example, right?
Mhm.
Especially those schools that are low income, minority, full of like more minority students are there, right? I think that's a big win when you start talking like that.
Definitely.
And so definitely thinking about this, what is measurable? What can you measure? All right. And
Mhm.
we at SAI can definitely help you guys. I just want to throw that out there. We just like this conversation right now, I hope is the first of several to get you guys thinking about these things so that you can be strategic in what you're doing. Okay. And
That would help
so
a lot.
what I hope is, for our conversation today is somewhat short, but I want to bring you guys back actually later because you guys are really in the early stages of formation. Because I can see you guys changing and adapting in time, right?
Right.
So we will definitely welcome you back to present another one, and maybe that time also you'll have your logic model as well
Yeah.
in place. Do check our website to see ours as an example, and then thinking really carefully about those metrics, okay, and those indicators that you could measure. Don't have a million, have a couple that could unite all of you into a focused mission, right? Whether it's running these big conferences, fine, but there's some other low-hanging fruit that are right in front of you. They're right there. The high school that are now doing neuroscience is I think a cool one to just measure.
Mhm. Right.
And just track that right now. Like, what is the state? Like, that's a survey you can do of a high school. Send it to the principals and ask them, hey, how many courses of neuroscience do you have, or are you teaching in your school? And I bet you it's really low. And
Mhm.
then you can be a targeted effort, find a couple of high schools and say, okay, maybe in this year, our target will be to increase the number of high schools that do neuroscience workshops. Done.
Mhm.
Right? So you can measure how many high schools you go to do neuroscience workshops. And then the second one is how many do adopt any curriculums that do neuroscience. That would be a huge win.
Yeah.
Right? So anyway, just food for thought, okay?
Uh-huh. Thank
Awesome.
you.
So thank you so much for this chat. I really enjoyed it, and I've gone to learn more about what you guys are doing. As I mentioned earlier, SAI is available. Please ping us. We'll be happy to coordinate with you. And I also want to say that as you're thinking about organizational things, SAI has different teams of people that basically come in and because we are somewhat of an incubator, you guys are short of time, if you sort of don't want to do all that organizational things that are can be problematic, do consider like joining a place like SAI, and there are others, whereby you can get that input, brainstorming on the go, basically, because that's what we are. And we have other teams that have come in and are part of us now, and they individually are doing their own work, but it's part of SAI's overall mission. And what you guys are trying to do, I think, is in line very much with what we are trying to do as well. and
Mhm.
and so just food for thought that sometimes there are other organizations that are already, they could give you the space to really flourish, and you have to think about what ultimately do you guys want to do. And that's the important thing,
Right.
like what do you want at the end of this.
Yeah.
Please let's connect on email, okay, and continue the discussion, okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for chatting. Okay. All right, talk to you soon, okay.
Talk to you soon.
All
Thank
right,
you.
bye.
Bye.
Bye.